What up, world? R.I.C.H coming right back at you. Let me talk to y'all like somebody who in Atlanta, because this situation with Future's brother ain't just some random story. This is a real Atlanta moment that hit different. When the headlines came out, everybody said the same thing. How the hell Future brother get caught up like that? But see, that's how people talk when they looking at it from the outside. When you live here, when you know the pressure, the streets, the expectations, the environment, the story makes a whole lot more sense than you think. Because just because you related to a superstar don't mean you got a superstar's mindset or superstar's talent. Sometimes being next to greatness makes you feel like you living in a shadow you will never outgrow.
A money counting machine, a vacuum sealer used to package bricks of illegal narcotics, and the Glock 19 semi-automatic pistol.
These are just some of the items found alongside 21 kilos of fentanyl and $380,000 in cash during a search warrant execution at a Forest Park home last week.
Because just 2 milligrams of fentanyl is a lethal amount, 21 kilograms is enough fentanyl to kill millions of people, and its street value is nearly $500,000.
Rico DeVille Bice and David Estevan Montillo Diaz were both arrested and charged with conspiracy to possess with intent to distribute fentanyl.
We believe that Diaz's connection to California is significant because we know, as mentioned earlier, the Mexican drug cartels smuggle fentanyl into our country over the southwest border.
Clayton County Police, the FBI, and the DEA all collaborated in the effort. Fentanyl is a highly addictive substance that U.S. Attorney Theodore Hertzberg says is often added to fake prescription drugs.
If a pill or a powder or another substance did not come from a doctor, a pharmacist, or some other healthcare provider, you should assume that it contains fentanyl.
It does make it more addicting, but also gives a more enhanced high. We're not going to be satisfied until there's no cartel presence in drugs in our communities anymore.
The suspects are facing the possibility of life in prison without parole. In DeKalb County, Bridget Spencer, Atlanta News First.
Look, Atlanta is a place where everybody look like money. Everybody drive like money. Everybody talk like money. And that pressure hit different when you ain't got a skill that printed, when you ain't got the talent your brother got. See, Future can walk into a studio and turn an idea into $1 million. Casino can't do that. That ain't a knock, that's just reality. And sometimes reality pushes people back to what they know, even if what they know can take their life away. The feds say they raided an Airbnb in Forest Park. Let me explain something to y'all right now. Airbnb traps have been a thing in Atlanta for a few years now. Nobody want to get caught in their own house. Nobody want the feds kicking in the door where their kids lay their head. So they set up spots, moving work in and out. But here's the problem. When you rent a spot, you don't control it. Airbnb got cameras outside, and the neighbors ain't blind. People call the cops for anything nowadays. And when the feds got a tip about fentanyl, they come out with a different energy. So they hit the spot hard. And they said Casino tried to run out of the side door. If you know anything about the Atlanta Task Force, you know you ain't outrunning them. Not when they come with a deep team like that. But let me tell you what stood out to me as a man in the city. The way they talked about what they found. They didn't say a couple bags. They didn't say a little bit of product. They said 21 kilos of fentanyl. That ain't zip work and that ain't helping the homies. That's a supply line, a whole operation, and a big one. That's something that can take out a neighborhood, a county, a whole city. You move like that in Atlanta, you moving on federal territory. And the feds don't play about fentanyl. They treat it like domestic terrorism, like you trying to poison the nation. And then they found the money. $300,000 in a box, $80,000 in a go-yard bag he had on Instagram. That right there is a lesson to anybody listening. The feds don't just watch you. They watch your social media like it's part of the case file. You flex a bag online and they gonna match it to a bag in the raid. Casino told him he makes $2,000 a month as a studio manager, but he lives in a $4 million house and drives luxury cars. The feds basically call his whole lifestyle a crime scene, and they want him held without bond, which is pretty much them saying, we got enough. We don't need you outside making it messier. Now, here's where my angle is different. People from outside think this is just a dumb decision. People from the outside think he should have made better choices. But people from the city know this is deeper than choices. This is about identity, pride, and not wanting to be Future's little brother your entire life. Because when you stand next to a legend, you either become a shadow or you try to create your own light, even if that light comes from fire. And that's what I'm telling you. Some people say he shot himself in the foot, but I say he shot himself in the head. This was self-inflicted, a decision you can't undo. And right now, the reality of what he's facing is probably kicking him harder than any door the feds could kick in. Because this ain't a state case. This ain't a couple years with good behavior. This is fentanyl. This is federal. This is life, or damn near close to it. And the city knows exactly what that means. Atlanta done seen this story play out before. But this one hurt different. Because it didn't even have to be like this. Anybody from Atlanta knows this part. The whispers and the rumors that happen after the feds hit. Because after a raid like that, everybody in the city starts looking at the bigger picture. Not just the drugs, not just the money. They start looking at the why. They started looking at the man. Everybody is asking the same question. Why would Future's brother be in the middle of that? But see, the question only exists if you think money automatically fixes a man, because it don't. Atlanta got more millionaires than most cities in the South, and still got people making moves that don't match their zip code. And that's what makes this story crazy, because it feels like a man who was already out the game and walked right back into the fire. In Atlanta, you can look successful and still feel lost. You can live in a $4 million home and still feel like you ain't did enough to prove yourself. You can drive foreign cars and still feel like you ain't really made it, because in this city, everybody looks like they winning. And that pressure will eat you alive if you let it. And that's what happened at FBG Casino. This wasn't a man trying to survive. This was a man trying to keep up with an image he built around himself. An image that didn't match his reality. That studio manager paycheck was never the core of his lifestyle. So the Fed said, okay, then what is? And on November 14th, they got the answer. 21 kilos of fentanyl was the answer. Now, let me talk about fentanyl real quick, because people throw that word around like it's just another drug. It ain't. This is a bioweapon in the streets. A few grams can wipe out a block. A few kilos? Man, that's a national security problem. So when the feds caught him with 21 kilos, they didn't see a man from Atlanta. They saw a threat. They saw a connection. They saw a supplier. They saw someone who was never supposed to be on the outside again. And that's why they want him held without bond, because they feel like anybody who can get their hands on that much poison ain't some regular dude they can trust out in public. They see him as a run risk, a retaliation risk, a man with enough money and connections to disappear before breakfast. And they might not be wrong about that, because Atlanta know how fast people move out of this city. This ain't a city where people fall quiet after a raid. This is a city where everybody knows somebody. So the Fed said no bond, and that means they playing for keeps. But here's where it gets even deeper, because the whole situation exposed something nobody wants to talk about. We glorify the glitz of Atlanta, the cars, the money, the clubs, the energy. But what about the people surrounding these stars who feel like they got to keep up? That's the pressure people don't see, and that pressure is deadly. FBG Casino wasn't trying to be a star. He was trying to be his own man. He was trying to create his own lane, have his own money, be able to say, I did this myself, even if it meant risking everything. And that's where the tragedy really sits, because ego is a powerful drug, more powerful than anything he could have sold, more addictive than any check he could cash. And out here in Atlanta, ego will take you down faster than the police ever could. Look at the timing, look at the location, the movement. An Airbnb in Forest Park, the feds been out there all year. They watching any house that don't match the traffic. And on top of that, Airbnbs get the most 911 calls for suspicious activity, period. You can't move weight in a place where people got cameras on their doorbells. It was a setup for failure from the start, and he walked right into it. And here's the part that hit me the hardest. All that money, and not one thing about his life was quiet. He was moving loud, moving heavy, moving like he was invincible, like he couldn't fall. But he did, and not from a lack of opportunity, but from a lack of comprehension, lack of patience, a lack of humility. Sometimes the hardest thing to do in a city built on flexing is not to flex at all. And that's why this story ain't just about Future's brother. This is about anybody who has ever been close to greatness, but still felt like they had something to prove. Because when you move with that energy, you stop playing checkers and start playing Russian roulette. The feds got their gun on the table now, and he looking at life, real life. No parole, no good behavior. Federal time is federal time, and life means life. The city is watching, not just because it's Future's brother, but because this is a lesson about pride, pressure, and a warning about how close success and self-destruction live in Atlanta. This ain't a foot shot. This ain't a leg wound. This was a headshot to his future. And there may not be a way back. But hey, that's just my opinion. What's yours? Like, comment, subscribe, establish rich. I'll be back with another one. Peace.